The Pacers have been linked to wanting to make a move away from Malcolm Brogdon and Miles Turner. Maybe we have a super deal coming if somebody wants a number 6 selection and is interested in any of those players. So, Indiana, I think, is in a good position to make a big splash, whether they do so on what Rick Carlisle and Kevin Willard want to get accomplished tonight. If the right deal comes along, that we could get a blockbuster move in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, you feel it, Rob Vino? You feel it coming on here? Because the Knicks are going to screw this up somehow here at number 11. Let's be realistic. Already we're questioning what the hell just happened here with our friends at Sacramento. But let's move on past that. I think the Pelicans at 8 are an interesting situation because they don't need shooting necessarily. They're going to need, I don't know, maybe some defense. McCollum's back. They've got a lot of shooting. So where does the Pelicans? Where do they go? Do they go for a little more defense, a little bit size here? What do you do?
I think, Joe, that if he's still available, that they will probably be the ones to end up with Benedict Mathurin. And if that's the case, and you slot him to shooting guard, splitting minutes with Herb Jones, they just become that much stronger. I mean, you got to remember, you're going to add Zion Williamson to this team. Their front court is pretty well stacked with Zion, Jackson Hayes, Valanciunas, Brandon Ingram.
Benny Mathurin, by the way, is the pick. Yeah, Benny Mathurin is, in fact, an Indiana Pacer. That is exactly who they have gone with here. So good old Benny, ready to you called it there, Tony Mejia. Well done. He is on his way to the Indiana Pacers there, Rob Vino. So now here we go. We got a couple more picks now to New Orleans. So Benny Mathurin's not there. Where did they go here? What do you think?
Well, let me just say this real quick where Indiana's concerned. Now, that is a stockpile of guards, right? So Tony talked about potentially moving off of Malcolm Brogdon. You now have Malcolm Brogdon. Let's not forget, Buddy Hield and T.J. McConnell and T.J. Warren is a potential trade there. So we'll see if Mathurin sticks around there or if they unload a couple of guards because they're so guard heavy at this point in time. New Orleans, I think, is in the situation where they could just draft best athlete available. Jeng, I had seen some strong connections to Oklahoma City potentially. I don't know, Tony, correct me on this. And don't even correct me, just tell me on this. What I think I remembered is that he and Josh Giddey have some sort of connection. And the article I read thought that his ability to play in pick and roll with Giddey was something that OKC was looking forward to and was a potential. We've talked a lot about them trading out of 12 here tonight, and that was a guy that they potentially were going to trade out of 12 for. Maybe that can be a curveball, but I don't know because I don't watch enough Australian basketball to know that there was a connection between Giddey and Jeng. But if there is, maybe Oklahoma City's looking to make a move here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the connection would be other than that they, Giddey obviously an Aussie and played in that league, and Jeng has been in there for a few years and is one of those players that everybody really, the first thing out of their mouths when talking about was when Jeng is his playmaking ability. He's like a willing passer, and that's really the first thing that stuck out about Giddey. Giddey's basically a 6'8" point guard. So I don't think Jeng is quite that type of player, but you mentioned it, a solid pick and roll guy that can accomplish a lot, and with his size, because he is a legit 6'9", he could potentially be a solid combo forward in this league. But I mean, Portland is up next. And they could go in a number of different directions, including trading the pick, because everything that has been said over the last 6 months about the Portland Trailblazers correctly, in fact, is that they have to appease Damian Lillard, forced to trade out of there to say, all right, build around me. I want to be here, but you have to give me some help. And so Josh Hart was acquired last season, and then essentially when Lillard was injured, they tanked. But they tanked to put themselves in position to pick up a Jeremy Grant, who they traded a 2025 first-round pick for last night. So they've got Grant, they've got Hart, they've got Joe Ingles, who will be coming off of a knee injury, but should be good to go and be a factor for the Trailblazers next year. They have, they've got veterans. So do they add a young piece to that, or do they add, trade this pick and add, somebody who's ready to play? So this could be where Dyson Daniels ends up, where Jeng ends up, where Shaden Sharp ends up. And if they're committed to moving off Yusuf Nurkic, which is a possibility, this could be a spot.
Oh, well, he is frozen up there, but we'll get him back here in just a second. I got to ask you guys about the Knicks coming up here, too, because we're hearing some rumors about Ty Washington, Rob Vino. Good old Ty, a New York Knick, and the ability for them to they need scoring, they need playmaking, right? We haven't talked about him, and we haven't talked about a lot of Kentucky players, interestingly enough. It's a little strange here, Rob Vino, but yes, could Ty Washington be the Kentucky player in the first round to go off the board here to the New York Knicks?
The player I've seen most connected to them, Joe, is A.J. Griffin out of Duke, and it's like Duke first round here, because you're going to wind up getting Mark Williams drafted. And maybe Keels gets drafted as well, and they get 4 first-rounders out of this deal. But A.J. Griffin, a lot of this is, are you physically ready to play in the NBA right out of the gate? And Griffin is, and maybe Ty Washington isn't physically ready yet. There's a lot of comparisons. I guess not comparisons, but I heard a lot of folks saying that, the track record of Kentucky guys who weren't necessarily stars, namely Tyrese Maxey and how he's turned out, is a good selling point for Ty Washington, right? But then again, I saw some numbers on him where against the best competition, he didn't play necessarily all that well. So to me, if the Knicks are looking for shooting, and they're looking for an NBA-ready body, and they're looking for a guy who's willing to play defense, I think A.J. Griffin would be the solid choice there for them, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, Tony, we haven't talked Kentucky, but we got Sharp and we got Ty here with a couple of needs to fill with some of these teams. If you had to guess, when do we get our first Kentucky player off the board here tonight in the draft?
I mean, Sharp is probably going to come.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Tony Finn, that was my bad. But you can answer in just a second, me here. That was Tony Finn. When is the first Kentucky player we're going off?
Well, it could be Ty, I guess, right? I mean, how about Sharp's from Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Canada?
Well,
Sharp,
no, he is from there.
Sharp, because the guy. Yeah, I know, right? I would say this. I'm still wondering where's this Daniels fit now? That I really thought he'd be one of those guys that would have been talked about, or maybe even gone by
the time Portland, doesn't he? He's got to go to Portland, right? I mean, Portland has got to go. The G League, isn't that what it was? He was a big G League guy, right?
Yep, that's right. Yep, G League
elite. Chris Haynes is reporting,
right?
Who was plugged in Portland because that was his first job, says that we're going to see the first Kentucky player off the board right now in Shaden Sharp to the Portland Trailblazers.
Okay, so there you go. All right, so then Dyson Daniels. All right, so now could he be? We know that New Orleans, not exactly great from shooting the three there, Tony Mejia. So maybe they go, who's the best three-point shooting player left on the board here right now, because that's got to be something I would think New Orleans, along with defense, is going to be looking at. They were 27th in the NBA from three-point shooting last season. They got to find somebody that can shoot the rock from the perimeter. Who is it? Is it Daniels?
I think it's A.J. Griffin at this point.
It could be Griffin, yeah.
Kid out of Duke who really did a nice job for them throughout the NCAA tournament, throughout his entire season. But he's a better shooter certainly than Daniels, and I haven't seen enough of Dieng to comment on his shooting. Just his playmaking. But all those guys are oversized wings that would fit in nicely because they have Herb Jones there, Nikhil Alexander Walker. Oh no, they traded him actually, but they've got They've got some guys that can shoot the ball. From Virginia is there, Trey Murphy, who shoots the ball extremely well. And, all those guys are going to get great looks because you have to double Zion Williamson when healthy. So I agree with you, Joe. Shooting should be at a premium for the Pelicans at number 8. And maybe it's not a reach to go A.J. Griffin there because at this point you're looking for the best fit, not necessarily the best available player.
Well, it is official there. It looks like Shaedon Sharpe is going to the Portland Trailblazers here. That looks to be official here. So Kentucky finally off the board here with Shaedon Sharpe ready to go. And that brings us, of course, to New Orleans. And Rob, what do you got here? Ty not too far behind, maybe.
Well, the emergence of Jose Alvarado last year leads me to believe that this team is set at point guard.
Okay.
As far as starter and backup is concerned, right? So maybe not. But if they do choose to go point guard and you do want one that can shoot, Johnny Davis from Wisconsin comes into play here. If you choose to go A.J. Griffin, a bigger, more of a 2-guard, whichever. If they choose a shooter, Joe, I think you have to wonder what happens to Devontae Graham because Devontae Graham is the guy getting shoved out of the equation here. Their guards at that point would be McCollum, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, and whoever they choose here. And Devontae Graham doesn't fit into that picture. I don't know that they need 5 guards, so maybe there's a trade up coming with him. Like I say, I think their front court is pretty well set. They showed us last year that they're willing to go Twin Towers, and they're going to add Zion to that. So New Orleans shooter. Do you want a point guard shooter that plays defense, or do you want a 2 shooter that plays defense? I think that's, it comes down to Johnny Davis or A.J. Griffin. And it's interesting, guys, that those 2 were a head-to-head matchup here for betting purposes here tonight. Who would go first, Johnny or A.J. Griffin?
What is and right after that at number 9, what does San Antonio do here? Bahia, do they go Jalen Duren, right? The big kid, 6'11", 7-footer. Is that they need some size? So is that the direction they go, or what do you think? Or do they go more shooting here?
Well, yeah. Look, the Spurs could do any number of things, and Duren is certainly an option because they've got Jakob Poeltl, who asserted himself as their primary center last year and is a solid shot blocker. But if you want to get younger and move on from Poeltl, with his contract expires, Duren is certainly a guy that I envision being a starting center in the NBA by 2024. So he'll probably need some seasoning. He's pretty young, but Duren would be my pick. But again, depending on what New Orleans does, you've got Daniels and Dieng and Johnny Davis and A.J. Griffin available. Jeremy Sohan too could be linked to the Spurs, a Baylor kid who's a terrific athlete.
Right. Yeah, defender too, Tony Finn. I mean, there's a kid, a D3 that's going to be. He's going to be good here, and he can guard just about anybody on the court here. Baylor, they can play some defense, and there's one other kid from Baylor, isn't there? That's also still available, I believe. That some people were talking about. Oh, Kendall Brown. He was the other kid from Baylor that they were giving some love to. But there's got to be some defenders coming out. No Ohio State players yet, Tony Finn. When might we get a Branham?
Here's the thing. We're talking about true centers. And Tony mentions Memphis's Jalen Duren, right? Williams from Duke, I would say probably, right? A true center. You talked about San Antonio, and you talked about Sohan. But there's some guys that are better shooters. He's a good defender, but A.J. Griffin, a better shooter, could play that same kind of role. Better shooters. But this is the time of the draft where I actually have only that one Obaji going after the lottery's come and gone. Past 13.5. So I'm really interested. I'm interested where A.J. Griffin's going to go, but I'm really interested in how San Antonio. You mentioned San Antonio. It just where are they going? Because to not shooting threes, to being basically elbow jumpers, et cetera, they go. And I'm listening to you guys because they're one of the guys. They're one of the teams I would already have kicked out of any future plays, be it in the West and below.
And we got it looks like it is in. New Orleans has gone with the G League phenom Dyson Daniels going to the New Orleans Pelicans. So that is in the book, which means now San Antonio is going to be on the clock. But Dyson Daniels, he is going. So let's see what we've got. That at number 10. And then, of course, we'll hang around just to watch the Knicks screw it up here, Rob Vino. But the Wizards are an interesting team here. Vino, aren't they? They made some interesting moves last season. They have, Bradley Beal, or do they? And what do we do here for the Washington Wizards at number 10? What do you see them doing? An interesting group now.
Yeah, and real quick before we get into that, Joe, San Antonio has 9 and 20.
Yes.
And if you're talking about true centers, let's not leave out Walker Kessler from Auburn, who led the nation in block shots and is a defensive-minded center who is very good in pick and roll. Remember Jabari Smith. So San Antonio could wait till 20 to get their real center. I think with Washington's concerned, when you look at their starting lineup, it's not all that bad, right? Beal, Caldwell, Pope, Kuzma, Porzingis now in the mix, right? So they're looking to build some depth. They had a lot of injuries last year. Abdia's a good player, good offensive player. Rui Hachimura, Thomas Bryant. I think that you just go best available here, whatever they feel. That you look at their depth chart, what you find at shooting guard is Kentavious Caldwell Pope, and then a big hole the rest of the way through. So perhaps, again, we'll bring up AJ Griffin's name at shooting guard as a Bradley Beal off the ball back to shooting guard. Then you could take Johnny Davis. But I think in some way, shape, or form for Washington, it's going to be a backcourt player here. I think they'll draft to need, which need they think that, or who fills that need the best. But shooting guard seems to be there seems to be an awfully big void there for the Washington Wizards right now.
What do you think, Mejia? Where's the Wizards going shooting, or what do you think based upon what's left on the board here?
Oh, I mean, to add to their United Nations roster, they should take Dieng if he's available. Abdia from Israel and Hachimura from Japan, Porzingis from Latvia. So maybe that, and he would be the best available player here at number 10. John eventually be an NBA point guard. He'd have to work into that. And then he also could slide over if they do move Bradley Beal. So Johnny Davis has been a popular choice in mock drafts at number 10. But yeah, right now I'm very curious to see what the San Antonio Spurs do, because they also have been known to take an international player over the last couple of decades. And Dieng, to me right now, is best available player. But they've been able to keep a close tab on Jeremy Sohan as well. So that wouldn't surprise me if the Spurs go with the Baylor forward.
All right, so what happens with Mitchell Robinson here, Mejia? Because if he's on his way out of the Knicks, they got to go size, don't they? Don't they have to go somebody, somebody in the middle here if Robinson doesn't work out here with the Knicks?
Well, I mean, I know there's been rumors about shopping him, but I think he was not too happy with how he was used last year, but that's not an irreversible situation. I think Nerlens Noel is more likely to get moved than Mitchell Robinson. But certainly, if Jalen Duren is there for the Knicks, I think Tom Thibodeau could never have enough bigs. And they actually drafted a big that got in some time last year. The kid out of Texas, whose name escaped me, with a huge wingspan.
Sims.
But
Sims, yes. Sims, yeah.
Yes, Sims. Mm-hmm. So they've got guys there. Griffin could be an option there as well, or packaging it in a trade, because the Knicks desperately want to make a move for a guard, be it a Brogdon or through free agency Jalen Brunson. So I think that they're content with having Emmanuel Quickley be a sixth man, but I don't think Tom Thibodeau's commitment to defense would allow him to play quickly, starters minutes. And so adding a veteran guard that defends might be priority number one in New York.
So it's interesting. A bunch of guys with a couple of picks here in the first round, right? The Thunder will have their second pick coming up at 12 right after the Knicks. And then you've got the Hornets at 13 and 15, which becomes very interesting in there. Tony Finn, we have not had a whole lot of craziness, not any sort of trades or moving up here, but I find it interesting when with the Hornets, who they need some help here on a couple of different fronts, having 13 and 15. Could it be Williams? Wow! So we do have our first. Well, shall we say a bit of a shocker, but maybe not, because it does appear that there he goes. Sohan is off the board to San Antonio. They have opted to go with a little bit more of a defensive presence there. Wow. Are you shocked, Tony Finn, here that San Antonio went this route? No, huh?
No, because they had shown an interest in this. I mean, the stuff I read and I'd heard. My question to you, I'll throw a question to you too.
Sure.
I was just thinking, what about this kid from Serbia? He's fairly, what's he, 6'10"? He's not really a true center, but
Yep.
I thought maybe the Knicks might, when you guys kept talking about the Knicks, I thought if the Knicks go big, and you're right about Mitchell Robinson, when does this kid projected to go? I mean, what have you heard with Nikola? How you pronounce it? Jovic?
Oh, good question. What do you got there, Mahia?
Yeah, Mahia, the expert. Rob, what do you guys
Nikola Jovic is a 6'10", 6'11" guard, essentially. I mean, obviously he's going to be a forward in the NBA.
Really?
He's one of those kids like Anthony Davis that grew from 6'3" to 6'11" within a year or two, and so he retained all his guard skills. So when you watch him play, he looks like a guard out there. It looks his movements are fluid and natural, and he's got a really nice shooting stroke. From a toughness standpoint, I don't think he'll be ready to contribute right away, but he's at the draft, so he got accepted an invite to the green room. I would assume that means he'll be a top 20 pick, but I don't think that teams view him as a lottery pick just because he has to fill out and was such a late bloomer in terms of all his size and whatnot.
Interesting. Well, we still have a couple of schools here with some players, and I find it interesting, Rob, that Agbaji is interesting. He's like 38. I feel like he's played at Kansas for 23 years. He's got 5 national. I just feel like that kid has been around forever. But where does he go here? Does he go to maybe Cleveland at number 14? I mean, I think he was projected, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, somewhere 10 to 20, somewhere in that ballpark there. So where, Rob, does a national champion go here? A little bit older, a little more experience. Where does he go?
I think he goes to anybody who wants to really, really stretch the floor in a reserve role, right? To me, he's kind of like what Jordan Poole is. His range is basically unlimited. But I don't know that he's a starting guard for any of these teams coming up. So perhaps a sixth man or seventh man off the bench, a backup guard who stretches defense. As we see with Golden State, that shooting is definitely what's in the NBA. You can never have enough shooters. So I think any of these teams could select him, Joe, but I think that's where he fits. I think he fits as a second team, second quarter, kind of a spark plug type guy, works his way into a starting role. I don't think they're right off the bat. You talked about Charlotte at 13 and 15, and I'll say this. I don't know that there's a lack of that are still remaining here, but if Charlotte 13 and 15 doesn't take Mark Williams or Jalen Duren, if available, and you can't live with Plumlee at center and think that you're going to make the playoffs in the East. So they have to go get one. In my estimation, they have to use one of those two picks on one of those two guys, if available. I think one of them will be. So I think that's where Charlotte will definitely use one of theirs to fit. But they got to get one of those two guys, Duren or Williams.
So what's more surprising here, Tony, Finn? Tony, I'll ask you both here, but Tony Mejia, what's surprising still on the board? Duran, AJ Griffin still on the board right now. What are you finding curious as far as availability? Dan, you talked about Sohan obviously went off, but Mark Williams, what's surprising you here as we get ready for the Washington Wizards and then the New York Knicks here at 10 and 11?
Yeah, I would think Deng being available is my surprise at this point. I thought we'd see him as early as 7 to Portland, and mentioned it earlier, but Johnny Davis is going to be the pick for the Washington Wizards at 10, and so that's
Nice.
a big pickup for them because it is somebody that could potentially be a backcourt mate to Bradley Beal or ultimately his replacement. So solid pick for them, and then that creates a scenario where the Knicks have 2 guys on the board that they've been linked to a lot. Throughout this draft process, and Duran and AJ Griffin.
Oh, I love it. All right, so we got it. Johnny Davis, in fact, is the pick for the Washington Wizards, Liddell and company, but it is official. Johnny Davis going to shoot his way into Washington, which, of course, puts the New York Knicks on the clock here. So we will we'll hang out with you guys here and wait to have
blocking catalyst in terms of what the Celtics got out of Robert Williams, who's roughly near as long as Mark Williams. So Mark Williams should find his way onto a pick here in the lottery. Duran and Griffin as well, which then leads you to Agbaji, who I don't think is as good as Jalen Williams, who Rob mentioned he has a prop on from Santa Clara. I think Jalen Williams has a much bigger ceiling than Kai Agbaji. And Agbaji was so solid in college, and he did improve. But I mean, as an athlete, I think
guys for the Knicks we'll go around. Tony, Finn, obviously the bottom half of this when you get to 23, 24, you got the Sixers, you got obviously Golden State here. I'm thinking, and tell me if I'm wrong here, Tony, Finn, but I'm thinking the Milwaukee Bucks probably looking for, I would say maybe somebody that's a little more ready to play, maybe a little older, upperclassman kind of guy, somewhere 25 right in the playoffs this year.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned Ohio State. I was going to say Malachi Branham would be the one to go. Maybe he's a guy that would go, but he's darn young. He's coming out as a freshman. So then you're going to go older, wiser. Gosh, do we have any of those guys left? I mean, is there any of those guys of the draft? They're all so young. Yeah, I don't. How about Bokamp? When's another G League Ignite? I mean, I like him. Where's he going to go? So is he? Who's the? I'm really interested in your next screw up here. I really want to see who the next screw up with. Is it going to be Mark Williams? Is it going to be a big?
It's coming. Yeah, stop. It's coming. You know it. It's coming. Rob, what do you think? I mean, we haven't talked art for Miami. I think Wendell Moore Jr. also from Duke, another pretty good fit for to get guys
to play backup positions. But I think if you're Milwaukee, you're probably praying. And Tony hit on this. I mean, we should have mentioned this earlier because you kept saying Ohio State, but Malachi Branham has the fastest risers over the course of the last week in this. An athletic kid who, as a freshman, was